everyone, and welcome to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy at TV. In case you're not a subscriber yet, please do subscribe. Just press the subscribe button as well as turn on the notification bell so that you can get notifications when we upload our videos. Don't also forget to subscribe and join, follow, like our other social media platforms. Of course, you're seeing it right about now. Don't also forget to share this video across your platforms. Enjoy the video. All right, welcome back. Professor Bongo Adi joins me now. Professor Bongo Adi is a professor of economics at the Lagos Business School. Professor Adi, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Nancy. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me very well.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Not only hear you, but I can also see you. You are looking dapper and sharp. Prof,
thank you.
Yes, let's play this highlight. Okay, it was, I think, part of the highlights of President Tinubu in 2023. Let's just take a quick look at this video. Then we'll react to it when you come back. His inaugural speech as president.
On fuel subsidy, unfortunately, the budget that I've glimpsed before I assumed office and what I've heard is that no provision is there for fuel subsidy. So fuel subsidy is gone. Subsidy can no longer justify its ever increasing costs and the wake of dry resources. We shall instead rechannel whichever so-called to fund into better investment in public infrastructure, education, healthcare, and jobs that will materially improve the lives of our people. We shall remodel our economy to bring our growth and develop the GDP much better, achieve the GDP much better than we have today. I assure you. Do that through job creation, food security, and an end to extreme poverty. Security shall be top priority of our administration because neither prosperity nor justice can prevail amid insecurity and violence. To effectively tackle this, we shall reform both our security doctrine and its architecture. We shall invest more in our security personnel, and it means more than an increase in number. We shall provide better training, equipment, pay, and firepower. On the economy, we target a GDP not less than 6% growth. We aim to accomplish all of this by taking the following steps. Budgetary reform, stimulating the economy without engendering inflation. Industrial policy, to utilize the full range of domestic manufacturing and lessen import dependency. The electricity will become more accessible and affordable to businesses and homes alike. Power generation should nearly double, and transmission and distribution network must improve significantly.
All right, that was President Tinubu's inaugural presidential speech, May 29, 2023. Professor Bongo Adi is still with me. Prof, please react.
Yes.
The president's speech
Thank you very
2023,
much.
I had to write down a lot of things he's saying. So please assess President Tinubu's 2-year president from a classical and structural economic lens, because all the things he has said, 2 years into his presidency, how far so far?
Thank you very much. Great question. I think, and also it was really good playing that video of his inaugural speech. Okay, so let's assess him on the basis of his own claims, his own what he claimed to do or what he planned to do. So I will start with the last one. He said he would double power generation, and then, okay, let me keep that because it has to do with infrastructure. So budgetary reform without engendering inflation. So perhaps we start from there, because that is where I think he has registered significant achievement. When we look at the economy today, macroeconomic balances, whether we are looking at current account balance or the financial account balance, there seems to be some level of improvement, and we can explain why that has happened. On the current account balance side, we see that imports have reduced significantly. So if imports have come down, so definitely we will have a little bit of headroom when it comes to the trade deficit. So, but why imports decreased? Of course, we know why, because of the exchange rate harmonization. Again, that is another achievement he has managed to register, which is that we now have more stable, more predictable exchange rate. The parallel market premium seem to have been eliminated to a large extent. So that is progress embodied. Now, again, that has helped some companies, because they can, fully hedge their businesses, against shocks, because it's now possible to somehow predict what the exchange rate would be in future. So that is an achievement. Now, looking at the other side, which is one of the reasons the exchange rate has become more or less stable, has to do with the nature of the monetary policy that has been pursued over these 2 years. Now, of course, some people are of the opinion, including myself, that the central bank has been too hawkish in its approach to monetary policy, to the point where we think that, especially in relative to inflation, it seems that they've been backing the wrong tree. It has had the impact that it's attracting foreign portfolio investment. So on the back of that, we have some bit of stability in that market, because the high rates available to foreign portfolio investors attract them, and therefore there seems to be some bit of sanity in that market. And of course, it has also helped our external reserve, which has buoyed up significantly to the point where, there is no significant pressure on the side of the central bank to fund our imports, even 6 months and beyond 6 months. So again, that is progress. Now, again, looking at that macroeconomic reforms and the impact it has had on inflation, the question to ask is whether it is because the president said that he will embark on reforms without engendering inflation. If we look at what inflation is now, again, when we're talking about inflation, we need to be careful because we are using new rebase data. Okay, so not just rebasing, but the weights attached to the various components of the CPI basket have also changed. So we now see, from the Bureau of Statistics point of view, a reduction in inflation. Okay, so but if we're using the old rate, some people may say that we haven't seen much, but then to a large extent, inflation seems to be going down. But then going back to where they made inflation to where it is today, some people will say, okay, we are not back to where we used to be, so there wouldn't be that where we are now could not be seen as progress. But then, of course, yes,
Prof, sorry,
you know,
can I come in here a bit? Because you said, of course, in your analysis earlier that inflation seems to be coming down. But the question is, across Nigeria today, many families are grappling with high food prices. It's not many families, all of us. Whether you're even a big man or a small man or little man or average Nigerian or grassroots, as it were, all of us are grappling with the harsh reality that food prices are high. 2 years ago, a mudu of gari, let's simplify these things, because sometimes some of these discussions are lost in the esoterics of too much economic jargon and language. The harsh reality is that a mudu, a bowl of gari, last 2 years was around 200 naira to 300 naira. Now, it is sold for about 1,200, 1,100 naira. So inflation has not just become a number. Inflation is not just a number. It's a national trauma that many Nigerians are reeling from. I understand the fact that you mentioned the rebased number, but even at the rebased number, we're still suffering from a double-digit inflation of 23.7% for April now, from 24% in March.
Yes.
So how do you juxtapose that with what the president has said, that he will make lives more bearable for Nigeria? What was is that his famous this thing? Let the poor breathe. Yes, let the poor breathe.
The poor are not breathing right now. Okay, so that's why I said, we have major success there when it comes to the macroeconomic reforms. Now, I mentioned earlier that it seems that the central bank is backing the wrong tree by raising rates, which, of course, everybody sees that exercise has been inflationary. Now, let's unpack the inflation reality in Nigeria. What are the core drivers of inflation that I think the government has not paid attention to? In fact, that has actually missed the lens of the reform. We have macroeconomic reforms. We have seen tax reforms. There are reforms in certain key sectors. But then we haven't seen a reform when it comes to trade, especially tariff. Everybody is crying about Trump and the recent, hike in tariff that he initiated once he assumed his second tenure as the president of the United States. Okay, but compared relative to the United States, I think Nigeria is the most tariffed country in West Africa, and the data is there to prove that. I want to show you, link that high tariff to the inflation pressure that doesn't seem to go away regardless of what the central bank does. Now, let's look at it, consumer goods. Consumer goods alone, the tariff on it compared relative to peer countries, and the peer countries here would be Egypt, India, Indonesia, South Africa, and maybe Kenya, and Ghana as well. So when we compare Nigeria to these countries when it comes to tariff on consumer goods, Nigeria is up 10%, followed by Kenya, which is around 15%. The other countries are around 10, 12%. I mean, this is consumer goods. Now, I have no problem when we impose high tariff to discourage imports of things that we could produce at home. That's fine. Then let's go to intermediate goods. Now, intermediate goods are used as input in the production of final goods. So, which is very important for economic expansion, for scaling of industries, and for profitability, and of course for better living condition. When it comes to intermediate products or intermediate goods, Nigeria's tariff is double digits. Other countries are 5% or less. Okay, now let's look at raw materials. It's the same. Nigeria is about 10%, other countries 3% or less. For you to produce anything, you need either raw materials or intermediate products, which firms use as inputs to production. When you have this, and again, another thing that we have also observed that the president and his government, cabinet haven't paid attention to, is the competitive environment, right? Nigeria seems to be shielded, companies, private companies, few of them seem to be shielded both from domestic competition and from external competition. When you impose tariff on so many of these products, intermediate products, raw materials, okay, and then you have very limited competition, of course, to show you that there is low competition in Nigeria, that is measured by what economists refer to as Finder-Hirschman index, the HHI index, okay? That shows that there is high level of concentration, kind of quasi-monopolistic or at best oligopolistic market. Now, when you have such kind of markets, all the firms, producers have, significant market power. It means that they can simply transmit any sort of increase in cost of production to prices, and then consumers will be the ultimate, bear the ultimate burden of such increase in the cost of production. Okay, so tariff, which is again compared to other ECOWAS countries, for a range of products, Nigeria's tariff is at least 40% on average above the what is called the common external tariff, which is the agreed or the consensus tariff that countries in the ECOWAS region should place on imports. But Nigeria's is more than 40% higher. So this means that those costs are instantly and immediately translated to the final price of final goods in the market. Now, who bears the brunt of that? That is the final consumer. That is the real source of inflation in Nigeria. So now, who takes the tariff? Tariff is government's revenue source. So government is taking the money. In fact, we are being taxed. Okay, so tax reform now has increased taxes in different ways.
Prof, are you still there?
Okay. Yes, I am here.
Yes,
so you've seen the tax reform, and then this tariff as well. So you can see that it's a kind of multiple a taxation.
So, Prof, are you saying that the tax reforms bill, of course, that has scaled through now the National Assembly, we are still waiting for the directives or perhaps assent by the president, are you saying it is in no way helpful? Is that what you're saying? Is Prof still there? Okay. The network seems to be freezing. Let's see if we can take a break, and when we return, let's try to reconnect with Professor Bongo Adi, Professor of Economics at the Lagos Business School. But even while we wait to reconnect with the professor, please send us your comments, your questions to the WhatsApp line on the screen right now. What do you think about President Tinubu's midterm? We're giving him some kind of, I really want to hear from you anyway. What do you think? Since the famous subsidy is gone and the president says, let the poor breathe, are you really breathing as a Nigerian? Let's quickly take a break. We'll be right back. This is Moneyline with Nancy, and this is a program that sets your business day for you.
Inflation played a 9-1 on us, and the cost of doing business and the cost of living crisis persists. But we can win. We can win on those two things.
We need to work on our infrastructure, maintain what we have, and add new infrastructure. Isn't it interesting to you that it still costs less to ship something from China to Lagos than from Dakar to Nigeria?
Along the way, there's the determination to keep trying. And I believe that is what Nigerians would expect in terms of the programs that have been promised them, that have been outlined for them, and that surely will be delivered to
Thank you, Nancy. You've been doing a great job in trying to educate Nigerians, and we must appreciate you for that.
Everybody tells me you're the gold standard in this business, yeah.
Well, Nancy Naji, be the best you can be, and be that change that you want to see. Back, Prof. Sorry for that little glitch. It's due to, of course, network issues. Prof, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so please land on your point. I hope you got my earlier question, a follow-up to what you said concerning the tax reforms.
Yes, so I said that the tax reforms are well and good, but then there is this other reform on tariff that we haven't seen.
Okay.
Okay, so, and I was arguing that Nigeria's tariff is the highest, among the highest in the world, if not the highest, actually. So and then I broke that down from intermediate goods, consumer goods, intermediate goods, and raw materials. So compared or relative to peer countries, the peer countries including India, Indonesia, Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, and Egypt, Nigeria's tariff is at least two times higher than what is obtainable in those other climes. And when you have this kind of situation with tariff, okay, and then you have an uncompetitive private sector where you have the dominance of few players, a kind of an oligarchic political economy. Now that is a recipe for inflation, because the high cost of importing maybe inputs to production will immediately be translated into the final price for the final product, and it is the consumers, that is citizens, you and I, that bear the brunt, the burden of that high tariff. And then, so people pay tax, companies pay tax also. So you see that it amounts to kind of a multiple taxation. So people are really being strangulated by the high tariff that government imposes on imported raw materials and inputs. I think that is where we need to address if we really want to tame the inflation monster. But unfortunately, the president and his cabinet seem not to look at that, because I know they are more interested in driving revenue for government. And we can see that, yes, the fiscal balance has improved. There's fiscal consolidation because, the budget deficit was about 5.4%. That as fiscal consolidation, fiscal imbalance deficit was around 5.4% of the GDP in 2023, but now that has fallen to about 3.3% of the GDP. So there is fiscal consolidation going on, so meaning that government is trying to balance things. But then the effort to do that is imposing enormous hardship on the population. I think we need to approach that from a different perspective. We need to use a different approach. The one that is, fully dominated by monetary policy doesn't seem to really work well for inflation and for improved livelihood of Nigerians. Of course, in the final analysis, that is what counts, how people feel, the welfare of citizens. Right now, I don't think that is going in the direction that everybody expects.
The welfare of citizens can actually also be gauged through, like I mentioned earlier, the price of food. And let me take you back to President Tinubu's video that we played earlier, because he did talk about food security. And I remember vividly that when the president came in and made that announcement in May of 2023, there was a serious cost of living crisis that came up on the nation, and it prompted him to make a speech, I think July of that same year, if I'm not mistaken, yes, where he outlined a lot of measures, food security measures, monies to businesses. I remember he did say 125 billion naira to micro and small medium businesses, 75 billion naira to the big 75 firms in Nigeria, 50 billion naira to nano businesses, 50,000 naira each. That I'm going to interrogate later. But where I'm going to right now, is Prof still there, or the network has?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Now, what I'm asking specifically is around food security. From that announcement that day, I think the president also said that 500,000 hectares of farm will be cultivated. From that time till now, 2 years down the line, how far do you think we have fared? Because if perhaps the president or they have really followed through, I remember that we had the Minister of State for Agriculture on one of the town halls we had, perhaps in 2023 or so, talking to us about, it takes time and all of it. Now it's 2 years down the line. How far with food? Because you did mention that monetary policy alone cannot curtail inflation, which is a bit structural, or even majority of it is structural in the country.
Yeah, so again, speaking to that, the structural constraints to production in Nigeria. We also, okay, so let's look at the productivity index. What we've seen is also that productivity has declined, labor productivity. Okay, so of course, a lot of money is being spent, but then the value added or the, will I say, yeah, the efficiency of those resources spent isn't, okay, can't be strongly confirmed, by the outputs. And that is why you can see that inflation is high despite the interventions that government has made. Of course, you may say that 2 years is enough time, but again, given the structural constraints in the system, because you have to pursue several policies and several measures simultaneously in order to achieve the goal. It's not just a matter of releasing money to farmers or to SMEs. We also have to look at the conditions for production, the infrastructure available. The president also speak about power. Has there been significant improvement in power supply? Of course, your guess is as good as mine. Has there been any improvement in transportation? Your guess is as good as. And then the most important one, which is insecurity. Of course, that seems to be worsening by the day. It hasn't improved. So all those structural constraints will definitely undermine any effort, which is all limited to just giving out money or any sort of support to industries to increase productivity. So productivity doesn't just happen in silo. It's not just a one variable driven thing. So it is actually caused by the interplay of various factors. So in order to raise productivity, we have to address all those factors at the same time. But as it is right now, we haven't seen much progress when it comes to infrastructure. Of course, I can see because of the fiscal consolidation, money available to state governments, government at the various levels has increased. And therefore, they are also embarking on large-scale infrastructure upscaling all over the country. But then we haven't seen that yet translate. Maybe in the next 1 year, we may begin to see results. But right now, that goal doesn't seem to have been attained.
Prof, you're giving the president the next 1 year. 2 years already gone. 50% of his current presidency is already gone. And you see a lot of things now around politicking. It seems now that even governance is seemingly taking a backseat, as it were, with all the political stuff going on and all of that. Should we now begin to hope that the president will do what he promised Nigerians May 2023, security, all Nigerians will have security, things will be better for us, 6% GDP growth, where we are right now at about 3.4%. He wants to take us to a $1 trillion economy. That will be predicated on a double-digit growth, definitely, not on this paltry 3%. So how do you put all of this together? Do you think that the president is still focused on delivering economic gains when Nigerians do not have, they don't have a semblance of it for the last 2 years?
Like I said, it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. So let's start from growth. At least we've seen that growth has picked up. Okay. And then the growth that we have in the last quarter, we've never had it since the COVID. So I think that's an achievement. Again, we have to assess the president on the background of where he made the economy. The economy, remember, we're only over the 8 years of the past administration, we managed about an average of 2.8% growth. So, and that's over 8 years. And then in 2 years, he has managed to bring it to 3.4. So I can say that is a little bit of progress, but is that what we really need? Is that sufficient to take us to the 6% that he promised us? Of course, no. But then we can see that there has been progress. The economy has been increasing, okay, by scale. And then, but then growth is limited currently to the services industry. And of course, growth in the GDP was driven by oil production, which seems to have increased. And I believe that that is also a critical touch point for the Nigerian economy. That is oil, the oil sector. And the president has been bold enough to initiate the transformation of that industry by changing the board, changing the leadership, and then giving them fresh targets. So what I can say is that that move the president made just yesterday, okay, could have been done the first thing when he assumed power. if he had done that, perhaps we would be talking about maybe 2 million barrels per oil today, and then maybe full listing of the national oil company on the stock exchange, because that is what we need to really drive private sector participation in that industry. Because I believe that no matter what we do, Nigeria's short-term, measure for growth lies squarely with the oil and gas sector. So the president has made the right move. Okay, so yeah, you may say too little, too late, but then half bread is better than none.
Okay, Prof, you're a teacher. What's your midterm assessment of President Tinubu over 100?
Over 100, I would say 40%. 40%, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
40%.
40%, which is, well, that's a D. And that's kind of, well, not pass mark.
Not a pass mark. So I would assume
Yes.
that this D is predicated on the things you have said that are hampering this administration. What would you want President Tinubu to concentrate on the remaining 2 years? Assuming all things are being equal, that they are not the politicians they are. Because I guess that 2027 is on his mind now.
Yeah, so you can see over the past, why I gave him a D is that there's been minimum governance and maximum politics. So starting from the day one is more about politics and propaganda. I don't think that the president has really given attention to the urgency of Nigeria's situation. So if he had done that, we would have seen improvement, massive improvements, from day one. We need infrastructure transformation, and that needs to have happened yesterday. Nigeria's infrastructure stock is less than 20% of its GDP. And there is no way that level of infrastructure can give you a $1 trillion economy or even a 6% growth. In fact, the World Bank calculation is that for a country, for any economy to register 5% growth and sustain it for a considerable number of years, it needs at least 70% of its GDP in its infrastructure. So the infrastructure stock should be 70% of the country's GDP. Now we are just too far away from there. 20% against 70%. We can't deliver 6%. We can't deliver a 1 trillion economy. So that is why I said we haven't seen prioritization of the key issues that will enable us to have the economy that the president wants us to have.
Okay.
So it seems that he's speaking something else, but his body language is doing something else. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Prof. We'll leave it at that. Let's see what President Tinubu will tell us is it on Thursday now, May 29? Let's see what he would say. Apparently, he's a politician. He may score himself very well. But thank you very much for your insights today.
Thank you.
See you soon, Prof. All right, I've been speaking with Professor Bongo Adi, who is a professor of economics at the Lagos Business School, and we have been taking a look at the midterm report of President Tinubu concerning the economy. The economy is so wide, but we've started, and let's see how far we can go. That's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Thank you all, as always. Be the best you can be, and be that change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji. Bye for now. Thank you for making it up to this minute watching the video. Thank you all. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. Follow all our other social media platforms where we keep you up to speed with fantastic interviews, as well as markets, personal finance, business, and economy information. This is the best place to be. I'll see you all again in the next video.